In the yard of a luxurious mansion, a rich man in a blue suit cruelly pours ice-cold water over a 5-year-old girl locked in a metal cage. The little one, trembling with cold and fear, grips the bars while trying to hold back tears. No one knows she's there except for a majestic white horse watching everything from a distance. Although the animal doesn't understand the reason behind the situation, it begins to act strangely toward the man. When the horse hears the defenseless child's cry, the animal makes a big decision. What it will do in the following nights defies all logic and will forever change the girl's destiny. Before we begin, if you love animals as much as we do, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any heartwarming stories. Thanks. Now, let's get back to our story. At the imposing Windhaven estate, where meticulously manicured gardens, stretched as far as the eye could see, lived a magnificent white horse named Silverwind. His gleaming hooves shone in the morning sun as he watched, with his honey-colored eyes, the unusual activity at the main gates of the property. A gray-haired woman, carrying a small, battered suitcase, firmly held the hand of a 5-year-old. A girl, the little one, dressed in a simple but clean blue dress, had large, expressive eyes that seemed to absorb every detail of the place. Edward Montgomery, owner of the estate and a respected figure in the county, strode across the lawn with long, determined steps, his impeccable blue suit contrasting with the tense expression on his face. The groundskeepers, tending to nearby flower beds, pretended not to notice the commotion, but their hands trembled slightly as they pruned the rose bushes. "Mr. Montgomery," the woman began, her voice trembling but resolute, "this is Sophia, your daughter. I need you to take responsibility for her now." The girl instinctively squeezed her grandmother's hand, her eyes fixed on the butterflies dancing among the garden flowers as if trying to distract herself from the growing tension. Edward's face paled for a moment before hardening into a mask of restrained fury. "Mrs. Helen, I don't know what kind of joke this is, but I suggest you leave immediately." His voice, though low, carried a threatening tone that made the gardeners discreetly move away. Helen, however, stood her ground. "This is no joke. Marina entrusted Sophia to my care before—" Her voice broke for a moment. "But now I can't anymore. The doctor said I only have a few months left. The girl needs her father." Silverwind, from his privileged spot in the nearby stable, watched the scene with unusual interest. His ears twitched, catching every word, every sigh. Something about little Sophia piqued his attention. Perhaps the way she, though clearly frightened, maintained a serene composure, or how her eyes occasionally met his, establishing a silent connection. "Security!" Edward called, his voice cutting the air like a knife. 2 uniformed men appeared quickly. "Escort this woman off the property and make sure she understands she is not welcome here." "No!" Helen protested, her wrinkled hands gripping the golden bars of the gate. "You can't deny your own daughter. Look at her, she has your eyes, Take her away," Edward ordered, turning sharply. It was then that his gaze met Sophia's, who was now watching him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. For a fraction of a second, something in his face betrayed an emotion other than anger, perhaps recognition, perhaps fear. As the security guards gently but firmly led Helen away, Edward grabbed Sophia's arm, pulling her onto the property. The girl didn't cry, didn't scream, just cast one last look at her grandmother, as if wanting to memorize every detail of her face. Silverwind neighed softly, a sound that seemed laden with concern. Sophia turned her head in his direction, and for a brief moment their gazes met again. The horse sensed something special in that exchange, a wisdom beyond the girl's years, a quiet strength few would notice. Edward led Sophia through the gardens toward the mansion, his mind clearly racing, planning what to do with this unexpected complication in his perfectly ordered life. The sound of Silverwind's hooves restlessly, pawing the stable floor, echoed through the garden, as if the animal sensed that something important was about to happen. Little Sophia, as she was led into the mansion, kept her eyes fixed on Silverwind until the very last moment. In that instant, an invisible but powerful connection formed, a bond that would change both their destinies in ways no one could predict. Windhaven Estate only revealed its true nature after sunset, when long shadows turned its corridors into mysterious labyrinths. Sophia, still dazed by the day's events, was led by a stern-faced housekeeper through endless staircases and hallways, to a small room on the top floor. "Stay here and don't make any noise," the housekeeper instructed, her voice a tense whisper. "Mr. Montgomery will decide what to do with you in the morning." With those words, she closed the door, leaving Sophia alone in the dimly lit room. The room, though clean, had an air of neglect. A narrow bed with a light blue quilt occupied one corner, and a small dark wooden dresser stood beneath the only window. Sophia walked silently to the window, climbing onto the dresser to reach the view. From there, she could see the gardens and, more importantly, the stable where Silverwind was housed. The white horse, as if sensing the girl's gaze, lifted his head and looked directly at the window. Even from a distance, Sophia felt the comfort of his presence. It was as if, amidst so much uncertainty, she had found a friend. Downstairs, raised voices echoed through the walls. "What do you mean, a daughter?" A female voice sounded incredulous and hurt. "Edward, you owe me an explanation." "Amanda, my dear, it's obviously an extortion attempt," Edward replied, his voice calculatedly calm. "That woman must have found out about our upcoming wedding and concocted this absurd story." Sophia listened, sitting on the floor near the door, hugging her knees. She didn't understand all the words, but she perfectly understood the tone, the same one her grandmother used when trying to hide something painful. The night advanced slowly. In the darkness of her room, Sophia drew imaginary patterns in the dust on the windowsill, remembering the stories her grandmother used to tell. Stories about her mother, Marina, who was now among the stars, as Helen gently explained. Stories about princesses who found unexpected friends in scary places. A soft neigh caught her attention. Silverwind was restless in his stable, pacing back and forth. The full moonlight bathed his white coat, making him look almost ethereal. Sophia watched, fascinated, as the animal seemed to dance under the moonlight. Suddenly, heavy footsteps in the hallway made her heart pound. The door opened, revealing Edward, now without his jacket, his tie loosened at his neck. "Sophia," he pronounced her name as if it were a foreign word. "We need to establish some rules." The girl stood up, meeting his gaze with a silent courage that caught him off guard. For a moment, Edward hesitated, recognizing in the child's eyes the same determined look as Marina's. "You will stay here temporarily," he continued, regaining his composure. "You are not to leave this room without permission. You are not to speak to anyone about who you are or where you came from. And above all, you are not to disturb my fiancée, Amanda. Understood?" Sophia nodded once, her silence more eloquent than any word. Edward frowned, unsettled by the girl's maturity. He had expected tears, protests, something to justify his irritation. Instead, he found a dignity that deeply unnerved him. "Tomorrow," he added, heading for the door, "we will decide on a more permanent arrangement." The veiled threat in his words hung in the air even after he left, locking the door. Sophia returned to the window, seeking comfort in the sight of Silverwind. The horse remained vigilant, as if standing guard. Under the silvery moonlight, girl and animal shared a mutual understanding that transcended words. In the silence of the night, as the mansion gradually fell asleep, Sophia made a promise to herself. No matter what happened, she would find a way to get closer to that magnificent white horse. Something in her heart told her that Silverwind would be more than a friend. He would be her key to freedom. Down below, in the stable, Silverwind kept his eyes fixed on the small, illuminated window, his ears alert to every sound of the night. The old horse, who had seen so many secrets born and die on that property, sensed that his life was about to change forever. Dawn arrived with the promise of a warm day, and Sophia awoke to the distant sound of neighing. Silverwind greeted the rising sun with his powerful voice, as if wanting to awaken the entire estate. The girl ran to the window, eager to see her equine friend, and discovered that the world looked different in the golden morning light. The gardens gradually came to life, with groundskeepers emerging from various corners to begin their daily work. Among them, a grey-haired man with a kind face caught Sophia's attention. He moved carefully among the flowers, occasionally stopping to talk to Silverwind through the stable fence. "Your breakfast, girl," announced the housekeeper, entering the room with a tray. Sophia noticed that the woman avoided looking directly at her, as if afraid to establish any kind of connection. "Mr. Montgomery requests your presence in his office in an hour." While eating the bland oatmeal, Sophia continued to watch the elderly groundskeeper. He was now inside the stable, patiently brushing Silverwind's white coat. The horse, normally known for his difficult temperament, seemed completely tame under the old man's care. Exactly 1 hour later, Sophia was led to Edward's office. The room, with its book-lined walls and dark furniture, seemed to swallow her in its grandeur. Edward was seated behind an imposing desk, and beside him, Amanda watched him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Sophia," Edward began, his voice controlled, "after much thought, we've decided that you will stay with us for now." He cast a significant look at Amanda, who nodded hesitantly. "But there are conditions." Amanda approached Sophia, kneeling to be at the girl's eye level. Her green eyes studied every detail of the child's face, as if searching for clues to a truth she feared discovering. "Dear, you need to understand that your presence here is delicate. No one can know about you yet. It's for your own protection." Sophia absorbed the words in silence, her gaze occasionally drifting to the office window, from which she could see a small part of the stable. Amanda followed her gaze and smiled faintly. "Do you like horses?" Before Sophia could answer, Edward interjected sharply, "The stable is off limits. Silverwind is a valuable and temperamental animal. I don't want any accidents." But something in Amanda's expression had changed. "Oh, Edward, the girl needs some distraction. Perhaps—" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Perhaps Mr. Miller, the groundskeeper who looks after Silverwind, could supervise her for a few hours. A day? He's discreet and reliable." Edward frowned, but Sophia sensed he couldn't deny his fiancée anything. "Very well," he conceded finally, "but only under strict supervision and away from the eyes of the other staff." Thus, that very afternoon, Sophia was introduced to Mr. Miller. The groundskeeper greeted her with a warm smile that reached his eyes, creating small crinkles at the corners. "So you're the little one Silverwind can't stop watching," he commented softly. Sophia felt an immediate connection with Mr. Miller. There was something about his presence that reminded her of her grandmother, a natural kindness that needed no words. He led her to the stable, where Silverwind awaited them with evident interest. "You know," said Mr. Miller as he carefully guided Sophia, "Silverwind doesn't usually take to strangers. But since you arrived, he's been different, more alert, more interested." He handed Sophia a soft brush. "Want to learn how to care for him?" The girl's eyes sparkled for the first time since her arrival. With Mr. Miller's patient guidance, she began to brush Silverwind's silky coat, The horse remained perfectly still, occasionally lowering his head to nuzzle the girl's hair. "You too," murmured Mr. Miller, observing the scene with a knowing smile. "You have old souls. Sometimes, when Providence sees that someone needs a special friend, it arranges a magical meeting." Sophia continued brushing Silverwind, absorbing every moment of this first real closeness. The horse, in turn, seemed to melt under her care, his eyes half closed in pleasure. It was as if they had both found something they didn't even know they were looking for. From the second floor of the mansion, Amanda watched the scene with a mixture of emotions. There was something about the interaction between the girl and the horse that touched her heart, but also increased her suspicions about the secrets Edward kept. The days at Windhaven Estate began to follow a peculiar pattern. Every morning, after breakfast, Sophia eagerly awaited the time to meet Silverwind. Mr. Miller, always attentive and gentle, turned each visit into a small lesson about horses, sharing not only practical knowledge, but also stories and life wisdom. "Did you know that horses can sense our feelings?" Mr. Miller explained while supervising Sophia, feeding Silverwind fresh carrots. "They're like mirrors of our souls." The girl absorbed every word, noticing how the horse reacted differently to each person who approached, tensing up when Edward passed, relaxing in Amanda's presence, and demonstrating an almost palpable joy when he saw Sophia. On a particularly hot afternoon, while everyone was resting, Sophia silently explored the top floor of the mansion. Her room was near a staircase leading to the attic, and curiosity eventually overcame her fear. In the dusty attic, amidst sheet-covered furniture and old boxes, a particular trunk caught her eye. With trembling fingers, she opened the trunk, discovering a collection of old photographs. In one, a young woman smiled radiantly, her eyes identical to Sophia's. On the back of the photo, a date and a name: Marina, summer 2018. Next to the photo, there was a small blue leather-bound diary. Sophia carefully leafed through the yellowed pages, recognizing the delicate handwriting her grandmother had once shown her in old letters. It was her mother's diary. Among the pages, she found more photos. Marina riding Silverwind, younger and equally majestic. Marina and Edward in happy moments, Marina pregnant, caressing her belly with a serene smile. "What are you doing here?" Amanda's voice made Sophia jump. Edward's fiancée stood at the attic entrance, but instead of anger, her eyes showed intense curiosity. Approaching, Amanda picked up one of the photos that had fallen to the floor. Her face paled as she recognized Edward beside Marina. I knew Marina," Amanda murmured, sitting next to Sophia on the dusty floor. "She worked here at the estate as a riding instructor. She was the only one who could handle Silverwind." Her eyes fixed on Sophia, observing the impossible-to-ignore similarities. "Edward told me she left suddenly, without explanation." Sophia clutched the diary to her chest, silent, tears streaming down her face. Amanda, moved by a maternal impulse she didn't know she possessed, enveloped the girl in a protective hug. "How long ago did your mother—" "2 years," Sophia replied, her voice barely a whisper, breaking her self-imposed silence for the first time. Amanda felt her heart ache. "That's why your grandmother came here." Amanda began to connect the pieces. "Sophia, you need to tell me everything. I promise I'll help you." At that moment, a loud neigh echoed through the gardens. From the attic window, they could see Silverwind agitated in his stable, as if sensing the importance of that moment. Mr. Miller was trying to calm him, while Edward watched the scene with visible irritation. "That horse is getting out of hand." They heard Edward's voice coming up the stairs. Amanda quickly helped Sophia put away the photos and diary, hiding the trunk behind other furniture. "Come visit me tonight," Amanda whispered to Sophia as they descended. "My room is at the end of the hall on the 2nd floor. Edward has a meeting out of town and won't be back late." We need to talk." When Edward reached the attic, he found only Amanda seemingly looking for something among the antiques. "Darling, what are you doing up here?" "Looking for inspiration for our wedding decor," she replied softly, her heart pounding. "I remembered you mentioned some old family heirlooms stored here." Edward seemed to accept the explanation, but his eyes scanned the room suspiciously. "Don't waste time on that now. We'll hire a decorator." He consulted his watch. "I need to take care of some business tonight. Don't wait up for me for dinner." When he left, Amanda breathed a sigh of relief. Looking out the window, she saw Sophia, already back at the stable with Mr. Miller and Silverwind. The horse seemed to have calmed down completely in the girl's presence, and now docilely accepted her care. "You knew all along, didn't you, Silverwind?" Amanda murmured to herself, watching the scene. "That's why you protect her so much." The horse, as if he had heard, lifted his head in her direction, his intelligent eyes shining with a deep understanding. Night fell over Windhaven Estate like a velvet cloak, bringing with it a stillness charged with expectation. Sophia waited patiently in her room until silence completely dominated the hallways. Through the window, she could see the moonlight reflecting on Silverwind's white coat, who remained unusually alert in his stable. With silent steps, learned in days of cautious exploration of the mansion, Sophia glided down the hallway towards Amanda's room. Her small, bare feet made no sound on the Persian rug covering the floor. Before knocking on the door, she cast one last look out the hallway window. Silverwind had his eyes fixed exactly in her direction, as if standing guard. Amanda opened the door gently, pulling Sophia inside. The room was cozy, lit only by a lamp that cast dancing shadows on the walls. On the bed, Marina's diary lay open, along with the photographs they had found earlier. "Come, dear," Amanda led Sophia to the bed, wrapping her in a soft blanket. "I've been reading your mother's diary. There's so much I need to understand, so much Edward hid from me." Sophia watched as Amanda carefully leafed through the diary pages. "Your mother was special, Sophia. She wrote about you before you were even born. Look at this." Amanda pointed to a specific entry. "My little one already moves like a rider in my womb. Silverwind senses it. He always nuzzles my belly during lessons. It's as if they're already friends." The words made Sophia smile for the first time since arriving at the mansion. Amanda continued reading selected passages. "Edward has been distant since I told him about the pregnancy. I fear his world of appearances and social status has no room for us. But it doesn't matter. My daughter will have all the love she needs." A soft neigh came through the window, as if Silverwind wanted to join the conversation. Amanda got up and walked to the window, observing the horse under the moonlight. "He was never the same after your mother left," she commented thoughtfully. "Now I understand why. Silverwind hasn't forgotten Marina, and he recognized you immediately." Sophia joined Amanda at the window, her small fingers tracing patterns on the fogged glass. "Grandma always said Mom had a special gift with horses," she whispered, her voice soft as feathers. "She said it was because she saw their souls." Amanda hugged Sophia, silent tears streaming down her face. "Edward lied to all of us. He lied about Marina, about you, about everything." Her voice trembled with restrained emotion. "But I won't. Let him keep hurting you, little one, I promise." A noise in the hallway made them both freeze. Heavy footsteps approached. Edward had returned earlier than expected from his meeting. Amanda quickly hid the diary and photos in a drawer, gesturing for Sophia to hide in the closet. The door opened, revealing Edward with a tense expression. "Amanda, why are you still awake?" "I couldn't sleep," she replied, keeping her voice calm. "How was the meeting?" Edward crossed the room to the window, his silhouette framed against the moonlight. "We need to talk about the girl," he said abruptly. "I've made arrangements. There's a boarding school in Switzerland." "No, The word escaped Amanda's lips before she could stop herself. Edward turned sharply, surprised by the vehemence of her reaction. "I mean," she tried to recover, "she's just a child, Edward. She needs a home, affection. She needs discipline and a proper education." He cut her off. "It's already decided. She leaves in 3 days." In the closet, Sophia held her breath, her heart pounding so hard she feared they could hear it. Outside, Silverwind began to neigh insistently, an agitated sound that echoed through the property. "That horse!" Edward growled, heading for the door. "I need to do something about him too. He's been impossible since the girl arrived." When the door closed behind him, Amanda rushed to the closet. Sophia was trembling, but her eyes showed not fear, but determination. "I'm not going to let you go anywhere," Amanda promised, hugging her tightly. "And I won't let anything happen to Silverwind either." The horse continued to neigh, his sound now more urgent. Somehow he knew that the fate of everyone at Windhaven Estate was about to change drastically. Dawn brought a silent urgency to Windhaven Estate. Amanda hadn't slept. Her world turned upside down by the previous night's discoveries. Through her bedroom window, she watched Edward in a heated discussion with the estate's veterinarian near Silverwind's stable. "The horse is perfectly healthy," insisted the vet, a middle-aged man with a worried expression. "His behavior has changed, yes, but there's nothing physically wrong with him." "Find something," Edward practically growled. "I need a justification to sell him. No buyer will take a temperamental horse." Amanda felt her heart sink. She knew she had to act quickly, not just for Sophia, but for Silverwind too. With determined steps, she headed to the girl's room, finding her already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, her gaze fixed on the window. "Sophia!" she called softly, sitting beside her. "We need Mr. Miller's help. Do you trust him as much as I do?" The girl nodded without hesitation. Her eyes, so much like Marina's in the photographs, shone with a wisdom beyond her years. Amanda took Marina's diary from her robe pocket and handed it to Sophia. "Keep this very safe," she instructed. "It's proof of who you are, of your mother's love. I'm going to talk to Mr. Miller now, and then I'll need to be out for a few hours. Promise me you'll stay in your room until I get back." Again, Sophia nodded. Amanda kissed her forehead before leaving, a gesture that surprised them both with its naturalness. In the hallway, she met the housekeeper carrying Sophia's breakfast tray. "Mrs. Amanda," the housekeeper curtsied slightly. "Mr. Edward requested that the girl remain in her room today. He said she isn't feeling well." "I'll take care of her personally," Amanda replied firmly. The housekeeper seemed relieved not to have to deal with the complicated situation Sophia's presence represented. In the garden, Amanda found Mr. Miller already working among the rose bushes. He looked up as she approached, and something in his expression told her he had been expecting this conversation. "Mr. Miller," she began in a low voice, "how much do you know about Marina?" The groundskeeper slowly straightened up, his eyes revealing an old sadness. "I've known Marina since she was a girl, Mrs. Amanda. I watched her grow up, become the best rider in this region. I saw when she and the boss—" He hesitated, choosing his words. "When they fell in love. And I saw when it all fell apart. And Sophia, she's the spitting image of her mother," he replied simply. "Not just in looks, she has the same gift with horses. Silverwind noticed before any of us." Amanda looked around, making sure they were alone. "Edward plans to send her to a boarding school in Switzerland, and he wants to sell Silverwind." Mr. Miller's face paled. "He can't. That horse and the girl, there's something special between them, something sacred, if I may say so. I need your help, Mr. Miller." Amanda lowered her voice even more. "I'm going out now to visit Helen, Sophia's grandmother. I need to understand the whole story, get proof, but in the meantime I need you to protect them both." Mr. Miller completed, his eyes shining with determination. "You can trust me, Mrs. Amanda. Nothing will happen to Sophia or Silverwind while I'm around." In the stable, Silverwind stirred as Amanda approached. She had never entered alone before. The horse had always intimidated her slightly. But now, looking into his intelligent eyes, she saw what Sophia and Marina had seen, a noble and protective soul. "Take care of her for me," Amanda whispered, hesitantly reaching out to touch Silverwind's muzzle. To her surprise, the horse inclined his head towards her, as if sealing a silent pact. Before leaving, Amanda glanced one last time at Sophia's bedroom window. The girl was there, watching, and raised her hand in a discreet wave. Beside her, Marina's diary was safe, holding truths that needed to come to light. In the car, driving down the road leading to town, Amanda tried to organize her thoughts. She had only a few hours before Edward noticed her absence. A few hours to find Helen, gather evidence, and come up with a plan to protect Sophia. In her purse, she had a copy of the photographs found in the attic. In the glove compartment, documents related to her own assets, money she had inherited from her parents that Edward couldn't touch, resources that could ensure a secure future for Sophia, far from her father's manipulations. The sky suddenly darkened that afternoon, heavy clouds rolling over Windhaven Estate like omens of change. Sophia remained in her room, leafing through her mother's diary, absorbing each word like precious drops of memory. Silverwind, restless in his stable, responded to each distant thunderclap with nervous neighs. Edward returned earlier than expected, his arrival marked by the sound of car tires skidding on the wet gravel. Upon entering the mansion, his first question was about Amanda. "Ma'am left early," the housekeeper informed him, avoiding his gaze. "She said she needed to attend to personal matters in town." Edward's face stiffened. He climbed the stairs towards Sophia's room, finding the door locked. "Open it!" he ordered, his voice as sharp as ice. Sophia clutched the diary to her chest, her heart pounding. The key turned in the lock. The housekeeper always carried a spare, and Edward burst into the room. His eyes scanned the room until they fixed on the diary. "What is this?" He lunged forward, snatching the notebook from Sophia's hands. Recognizing Marina's handwriting, his face paled. "Where did you find this?" A particularly loud thunderclap shook the windows. In the stable, Silverwind began to neigh frantically. Edward flipped through the diary with trembling hands, his expression alternating between anger and fear. "Amanda," he muttered, suddenly understanding. It was her who... At that moment, Mr. Miller appeared at the door, breathless. "Mr. Edward? The stable? Silverwind is tearing the place apart. I've never seen him like this." Edward stuffed the diary into his inner jacket pocket. "Take care of it, Miller. And you," he pointed to Sophia, "don't leave this room." But as soon as Edward went downstairs, Mr. Miller returned. "Come, little one," he whispered, holding out his hand. "We need to get you out of here before your friend gets back." Sophia hesitated, her eyes fixed on the pocket where Edward had put her mother's diary. Mr. Miller understood immediately. "Don't worry about the diary now. Amanda has the proof she needs." Rain fell in dense sheets as they reached the garden. Mr. Miller led Sophia along a path between the rose bushes, keeping her sheltered under his large coat. In the stable, Silverwind continued his display of agitation, but upon seeing Sophia, he immediately calmed down. "He knew," Mr. Miller murmured, a knowing smile on his wrinkled face. "He was creating a diversion." Sophia approached Silverwind, who lowered his head to touch her face with his muzzle. The connection between them was almost palpable, like a golden thread woven by fate. Headlights cut through the curtain of rain. Amanda was back. Her car stopped abruptly at the mansion entrance, and she ran out, protecting something under her coat. Seeing Mr. Miller and Sophia in the stable, she changed direction. "Helen is in the hospital," she informed them, entering the stable. "But I got all the documents. Birth certificate, DNA tests she kept, even letters from Edward to Marina." Her eyes shone with determination. "It's over. Edward can't deny it anymore." Another thunderclap rumbled, and through the stable door they saw Edward leaving the mansion, the diary still visible in his pocket. His eyes swept the garden until he found them. "Quick," whispered Mr. Miller, helping Amanda and Sophia hide in the hayloft. "Let me deal with him." Edward stormed into the stable like a personified tempest. "Where's the girl, Miller?" "Sir, with this rain, it's dangerous for anyone to be out here," the groundskeeper replied calmly, positioning himself between Edward and the hayloft. "Silverwind is very agitated." As if to confirm his words, the horse reared, his front hooves cutting the air dangerously close to Edward, who instinctively recoiled. The diary slipped from his pocket, falling into a puddle of water. Sophia stifled a cry, but Amanda held her tight, preventing her from revealing herself. Through a crack in the boards, they watched as the diary pages became soaked, the ink beginning to blur. "It doesn't matter," Amanda whispered in Sophia's ear. "We have all the proof we need. Your grandmother kept everything, my love. Everything." Silverwind continued his intimidating dance, keeping Edward away from the hayloft. The man, for the first time, seemed genuinely frightened, not of the horse, but of the storm of truths he sensed approaching. The storm passed, leaving behind a washed and bright dawn. The garden of Windhaven Estate, still dripping from the night's rain, sparkled under the first rays of sun. In the stable, Amanda finished arranging a makeshift bed of hay where Sophia had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from the previous night's events. Silverwind stood faithful guard, his proud stance contrasting with the gentleness with which he occasionally lowered his head to nuzzle the girl's sleeping face. Mr. Miller, who had spent the entire night with them, prepared a simple breakfast with provisions he kept stored for emergencies. "The housekeeper told me Edward spent the whole night in his office," Mr. Miller reported in a low voice, offering Amanda a steaming cup of coffee. "Didn't sleep a wink. He's been making calls since the early hours." Amanda nodded, her eyes fixed on the folder of documents she had brought from the hospital. "He knows he's lost control of the situation," she murmured. "Helen told me everything before she was taken into surgery. She kept every piece of evidence, every proof, waiting for the right moment." Sophia began to stir, her eyes slowly opening. For a moment, she seemed confused by her surroundings, but upon seeing Silverwind, a small smile lit up her face. The horse responded with a soft neigh of good morning. "Come, dear," Amanda called, helping Sophia to her feet. "We need to get ready. Today is the day all truths will come to light." As if responding to her words, they heard the sound of cars approaching the mansion. Through the stable door, they saw 3 vehicles parking. An official police car, another with the insignia of Child Protective Services, and a third, more discreet, from which an elegant man carrying a briefcase emerged. "That's Mr. Davies, my lawyer," Amanda explained, recognizing the last visitor. "I was in contact with him all night, organizing everything." Edward came out of the mansion to greet the visitors, his face a mask of professional composure. But Amanda, who knew him well, could see the panic in his eyes. "Sophia," Amanda knelt to be at the girl's eye level. "You have a choice now. We can wait here if you prefer. Mr. Davies can handle everything." The little girl looked at Silverwind as if seeking advice. The horse gently touched her shoulder with his muzzle, a gesture that seemed to convey courage. Sophia then turned to Amanda, her eyes revealing a decision made. "I want to see," she said, her voice clear and firm. "Mommy always said in the diary that we should face our fears." Mr. Miller smiled, proud. "I'll go with you," he declared, placing himself protectively beside Sophia. "I also have much to tell about Marina and the events of that time." The small group walked through the sunlit garden towards the mansion. Silverwind, surprisingly, followed them as far as the stable fence allowed, his eyes attentive to every movement. In the main living room, Edward was talking to the visitors when they entered. His face paled when he saw Amanda carrying the folder of documents, Sophia walking determinedly by her side, and Mr. Miller bringing up the rear. "Amanda," he began, his voice trying to maintain control, "I don't know what stories you've been listening to, but—" "The true stories, Edward," she interrupted, her voice firm. "The stories Marina wrote in her diary, that Helen kept in documents, that Mr. Miller witnessed over the years." The lawyer stepped forward, opening his briefcase. "Mr. Montgomery, we have here all the necessary documentation: Sophia's birth certificate proving your paternity, DNA tests conducted at the time of birth, letters from you to Marina acknowledging the pregnancy, hospital records, testimonies." Edward collapsed into his favorite armchair, suddenly looking much older. His eyes met Sophia's, the same eyes as Marina's, and for the first time, he couldn't look away. "I couldn't," he murmured, more to himself than to the others. "My reputation, my social standing." "You could have," Sophia's voice, though soft, carried the weight of truth. "Mommy said in the diary that you just needed to have the courage to love." Through the living room window they could see Silverwind in the garden, his white, majestic figure silhouetted against the blue morning sky. A silent witness to the moment when the past finally caught up with the present, bringing with it the promise of a different future. The silence that followed Sophia's words hung heavy as lead in the mansion's living room. The Child Protective Services representative, a kind-faced woman, approached the girl with a welcoming smile. "Sophia," she began softly, "you are a very brave girl. Now we need to talk about what you want, about your feelings. Your opinion is very important to us." Before Sophia could answer, a piercing neigh cut through the air. Silverwind, still in the garden, seemed to respond to some invisible call. Edward rose abruptly from his armchair, walking to the window. "That horse," he murmured, his voice tinged with an emotion different from his usual anger. "Marina used to say he could see the truth in people. I never believed it, of course. But since Sophia arrived—" Amanda approached him, placing a hesitant hand on his shoulder. "You can choose to be different now, Edward. You can choose to do the right thing." The police detective, who had been observing silently until then, cleared his throat discreetly. "Mr. Montgomery, considering the evidence presented and the peculiarity of the situation, I suggest we resolve this in the least traumatic way possible for the child." Edward continued to look out the window, watching Silverwind. The horse was now perfectly calm, his noble posture reminiscent of the days when Marina rode him. A long-buried memory surfaced, Marina smiling, her hair flying in the wind as she rode, her belly already beginning to show signs of pregnancy. "I was afraid," he finally admitted, his voice almost a whisper. "Afraid of the scandal, of the change, of the responsibility. Marina deserved more. Sophia deserves more." The girl, who watched everything with her expressive eyes, gently disengaged from the CPS representative and walked over to Edward. She stood beside him, also looking out the window at Silverwind. "Mommy wrote in the diary that you had a good heart," she said simply. "You just needed to remember where you kept it." Mr. Miller, who had remained discreetly in the back of the room, wiped away a tear. "Marina always said that," he commented. "Even on the hardest days, she believed you would find your way back to the truth." The lawyer took the opportunity to speak. "We have a settlement proposal here," he explained, taking some documents from his briefcase. "An initial shared custody agreement with professional counseling for all involved. Mrs. Amanda has offered to be Sophia's primary guardian during the adjustment period." Edward finally turned from the window, facing everyone in the room. His face showed signs of the internal conflict he was waging, but there was also something new in his expression. Perhaps the first glimmer of acceptance. "Sophia," he called, kneeling to be at the girl's eye level. "I've made many mistakes. I hurt people who didn't deserve it. Your mother, she was extraordinary. And you're so much like her, not just in appearance, but in inner strength." Sophia watched him attentively, her small face serious, but not frightened. Edward continued, "I don't deserve your forgiveness, nor your love, but if you give me a chance, I'd like to try to be the father you deserve." Sophia's response came in the form of a gesture. She reached out and touched Edward's face, just as she did with Silverwind when she wanted to calm him. The man closed his eyes, a single tear rolling down his cheek. Amanda watched the scene with a heavy heart, remembering the words Helen had shared at the hospital. Marina always said that love has the power to transform people. That's why I kept all the evidence, not to punish Edward, but to give him a chance to redeem himself. Outside, Silverwind neighed again, this time a soft, almost musical sound. The morning sun now completely bathed the garden, making his white coat shine like freshly fallen snow. "Can I go see Silverwind?" Sophia asked, her voice carrying a new hope. "He always knows when I'm happy or sad." Edward looked at Amanda, who nodded encouragingly. "Go," he said softly. "I think we all have a lot to learn from that horse." As Sophia ran to the garden, followed by Amanda and Mr. Miller, the law enforcement representatives exchanged understanding glances. Sometimes, the best solutions didn't come from the courts, but from hearts willing to change. Edward remained at the window, watching his daughter hug Silverwind's neck, the horse gently enveloping her with his protective presence. It was as if the animal had always known this moment would come, the moment when the masks would fall and the truth finally would find its place in the sun. The days that followed at Windhaven Estate brought subtle but significant changes. Sophia's room was moved to the main floor with a privileged view of the stable. Amanda personally supervised the decoration, transforming the space into a cozy haven with soft shades of blue and green, colors reminiscent of the summer days Marina loved so much. On a particularly sunny morning, Edward watched from his office window as Sophia had her first official riding lesson. Mr. Miller led Silverwind by the halter, patiently explaining each movement to the girl, who absorbed every word with shining eyes. "She has her mother's natural gift," Amanda commented, entering the office silently. She carried a cup of tea and another folder of documents, this time papers related to Helen's hospital treatment. "How is she?" Edward asked, referring to Sophia's grandmother. His voice carried a genuine concern that surprised even himself. "The surgery was successful," Amanda replied, placing the cup on the desk. "The doctors are optimistic. Sophia wants to visit her as soon as it's allowed." Edward nodded, his eyes still fixed on the scene in the garden. Sophia was now seated in the saddle, her small hands holding the reins with impressive confidence. Silverwind walked with extraordinary care, as if aware of the preciousness of his cargo. "Marina gave her first lessons in this very spot," commented Mr. Miller, who had just entered the office after ensuring another staff member would supervise the rest of Sophia's lesson. With the same horse, in fact. Silverwind was younger then, but he already showed that special sensitivity. Edward closed his eyes for a moment, letting the memory surface. "She used to wear a blue scarf in her hair," he murmured. "Said it brought her luck." I still have that scarf," Mr. Miller revealed, taking a faded piece of silk from his pocket. "Marina gave it to me to keep the day she left, said one day it would find its way back home." Amanda took the scarf gently, her fingers tracing the delicate pattern. "Sophia should have it now," she suggested softly. Outside, the lesson continued. Sophia had progressed from a walk to a gentle trot, her face lit by a pure joy that made the hearts of everyone watching ache. "You know," Edward began, his voice thick with restrained emotion, "last night Sophia asked me about Marina. She wanted to know what her laugh sounded like, her favorite songs, if she liked hot chocolate on rainy days. "And what did you tell her?" Amanda asked gently. "The truth," Edward smiled sadly. "That her laugh was like crystal bells. That she sang old songs while brushing Silverwind, and that she made the best hot chocolate in the world with cinnamon and marshmallows." Mr. Miller smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. "She would have liked to know that too," he said, looking meaningfully towards the garden. At that moment, Sophia completed her first full lap in the improvised riding ring. Her smile was radiant as she waved to the office windows, knowing she was being watched. "I'll schedule a hospital visit tomorrow," Edward decided suddenly. "Helen deserves to know her granddaughter is safe and happy. And I need to ask for her forgiveness too." Amanda gently squeezed his shoulder in support. "One step at a time," she reminded him. "Trust, like love, needs to be rebuilt slowly." A joyful neigh from Silverwind caught everyone's attention. Sophia had dismounted on her own and was now hugging the horse's neck, whispering something in his ear. The animal lowered his head, creating a protective circle around the girl. "Do you know what else Marina wrote in that diary?" Mr. Miller asked, breaking the contemplative silence that had settled. "That Silverwind wasn't just a horse. He was a guardian of lost souls, a guide for wounded hearts to find their way back home." Edward took the blue scarf from Amanda's hands and walked to the door. "I'll give this to her personally," he decided. "And maybe it's time to share more stories about Marina." When Edward reached the garden, Sophia ran to hug him, a gesture that still caught him by surprise, but now filled his heart with an unknown joy. Silverwind watched the scene with his wise eyes, as if approving every small step taken towards healing. The hospital was quiet that visiting afternoon. Helen, propped up on white pillows, eagerly awaited Sophia's arrival. Her room was decorated with colorful drawings the granddaughter had made, white horses galloping under blue skies, flowers from the mansion's garden, and even a simple portrait of Silverwind that made the nurses smile. When the door opened, it wasn't just Sophia who entered. Edward was right behind her, carrying a bouquet of white roses, Marina's favorites, as Helen immediately recognized. Amanda completed the group, her hands gently guiding Sophia. "Grandma!" Sophia ran to hug Helen, careful not to disturb the medical equipment. "I brought something special for you to see." From the small bag she carried, she took out Marina's blue scarf, now carefully washed and pressed. Helen brought her hands to her lips, tears shining in her eyes. "The lucky scarf," she whispered, caressing the faded silk. "Your mother never rode without it." Edward approached the bed, placing the flowers in a nearby vase. "Helen," he began, his voice thick with restrained emotion, "I know words aren't enough, but I need to say I am so sorry for everything." The elderly woman studied the man's face for a long moment before answering. "Marina always said there was goodness in you. Edward, you just needed to find the courage to show it." Sophia, sitting on the edge of the bed, took her grandmother's hand. "Grandma, I learned to ride. Silverwind taught me along with Mr. Miller. And Daddy." She hesitated, looking shyly at Edward. "Daddy told me stories about Mommy." Helen smiled, squeezing her granddaughter's hand. "And Silverwind, is he still the guardian he always was?" "More than ever," Amanda replied, approaching. "He seems to have taken on the mission of protecting Sophia as something sacred. Just yesterday, when a gust of wind started during her riding lesson, he led her back to the stable before we could even call them." "I'm not surprised," Helen said softly. "That horse was always special. Marina used to say he had the wisdom of the stars in his eyes." Edward pulled up a chair, sitting beside the bed. "Helen, there's something I need to tell you. We're transforming the old training area into a therapeutic riding school. It was Marina's dream." Helen's eyes widened in surprise. The project she always wanted to pursue? Yes, Edward confirmed. Amanda found the plans among her belongings. Sophia helped us choose the name Morning Star Stables because Marina always said that each new day brings a chance to start. Over, Sophia, who had been unusually quiet, added, Silverwind is going to be the first horse in the project. Mr. Miller said he has a special gift for understanding people who need help. Helen wiped away a tear that trickled down her wrinkled cheek. Marina would be so proud, she murmured, of all of you. Amanda approached the hospital room window, from which one could see the hospital garden. The doctor said you can come. Home next week, she informed her. We've prepared a special room at the mansion with a view of the garden and the stable. At the mansion? Helen asked, surprised. Edward nodded. It's the least I can do. Sophia needs her grandmother nearby, and I'd like the chance to learn from your wisdom. And Silverwind can visit you, Sophia exclaimed excitedly. Mr. Miller said we can bring him to your window, like Mommy used to do when you were sick before. Helen smiled, remembering those moments. Your mother always found a way to bring joy, even on the hardest days. Like you, little one, Edward said softly, stroking Sophia's hair. You have her same gift. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly, filled with stories about Marina, plans for the riding school, and promises of a future that, for the first time in a long time, seemed bright and full of possibilities. When it was time to leave, Sophia left the blue scarf with her grandmother. To bring you luck until you come home, she explained earnestly. Helen tied the scarf around her wrist like a silk bracelet. You know, Helen said as they were about to leave, Marina always said that true love has the power to heal all wounds. Looking at you all now, I see she was right. Edward, standing in the doorway, looked at his daughter. A gift he had almost lost to fear and pride. Yes, he agreed softly, she was right about so many things. The opening day of Morning Star Stables Therapeutic Riding School arrived on a golden spring morning. The old training center at Windhaven Estate had been completely transformed. Access ramps were installed, the riding arena was adapted with special equipment, and a sky blue sign with golden letters announced the new name of the facility. Sophia, dressed in a riding outfit that was an exact replica of what Marina wore in her old photos, helped Mr. Miller prepare Silverwind for the ceremony. The horse looked especially majestic, his white coat gleaming like snow in the morning sun, a blue ribbon made from Marina's scarf delicately braided into his mane. Are you nervous, little one? Asked Mr. Miller as he helped Sophia put the finishing touches on Silverwind's presentation. A little, she admitted, stroking the horse's muzzle, but Mommy always said in her diary that being nervous just means your heart is dancing with joy, right? Mr. Miller smiled, his eyes welling up. Exactly what she used to say. In the main, House Mrs. Helen, now fully recovered, supervised the final preparations with Amanda. Photographs of Marina had been strategically placed around the venue, silently telling the story that led to this moment. In one particularly special photo, Marina smiled radiantly beside a group of children with special needs, a picture taken during the pilot project she never got to complete. Edward emerged from his office wearing a navy blue suit, no longer the cold, intimidating suit of before, but one that combined elegance with warmth. In his hands, he carried a folder with his opening speech. Are you ready? Amanda asked, softly adjusting his tie. I don't know if I'll ever be truly ready, he admitted, but today is for Marina, for Sophia, for all the children who need a place like this. Guests began to arrive, families with special needs, children, equine therapy professionals, local officials, and even some of Marina's old friends who came to pay their respects. The estate's garden, always immaculate, seemed especially welcoming that morning. The most anticipated moment arrived when Sophia, mounted on Silverwind, led the first presentation. The horse moved with extraordinary grace, as if understanding the importance of the moment. Together, they demonstrated basic exercises that would be used in the therapies, delighting everyone with their perfect harmony. Edward positioned himself in the center of the riding arena for his speech, but upon seeing Sophia and Silverwind, the carefully prepared words seemed inadequate. Instead, he spoke from the heart. "Marina had a dream," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "A dream of creating a place where horses and humans could heal each other, where love and understanding would be the main tools for transformation. It took me too long to understand the depth of that dream, the power of that vision." Sophia guided Silverwind close to her father, the horse stopping gracefully by his side. Edward continued, "But sometimes we need to get completely lost to find our way back home. My daughter," he smiled at Sophia, "and this extraordinary horse taught me that." Mrs. Helen, sitting in the front row, held Marina's old diary to her chest. Amanda, beside her, discreetly wiped away a tear. "Today," Edward continued, "we are not just inaugurating a therapeutic riding school. We are inaugurating a dream that transcends walls and riding arenas. Every child who passes through these gates will find not only therapy, but love, acceptance, and the chance to discover their own inner strength." Sophia dismounted gently, running to hug her father. Edward lifted her into his arms, continuing his speech with his daughter on his lap. "Marina used to say that horses like Silverwind have the power to see through our masks, straight into our souls. Today I dedicate this space to her, to our daughter, and to everyone who needs a place to belong." Silverwind, as if understanding every word, approached the father and daughter, gently touching Sophia's shoulder with his muzzle. The audience applauded emotionally, many with tears in their eyes. At that moment, a ray of sunshine broke through the clouds, creating a golden halo around Silverwind, Sophia, and Edward. Mrs. Helen whispered to Amanda, "Marina is here. It may not seem like it, but she is." And somehow, everyone present felt it too. The gentle, loving presence of someone who had planted the seed of that dream long ago, and now smiled to see it finally blossom. The weeks following the opening of Morning Star Stables brought new energy to Windhaven Estate. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the gardens every morning as groups of children arrived for their equine therapy sessions. Silverwind, surprising everyone except Sophia, proved to be a natural therapist, adapting his behavior to each child he met. On one particularly special afternoon, Sophia watched from the riding arena fence as Silverwind worked gently with Lucas, a 7-year-old boy who didn't speak. It was the boy's third session, and something extraordinary was about to happen. "Look at that," whispered Mr. Miller, who was beside Sophia. "Silverwind is doing that special thing again." The horse had spontaneously stopped and turned his neck back, his muzzle gently touching Lucas's feet. The boy, who usually avoided any contact, began to laugh, a crystal-clear sound that made his mother, watching nervously from outside, burst into tears of joy. "He had never laughed before," explained the therapist accompanying the session, her voice choked with emotion. "This is extraordinary." Edward, who had begun to actively participate in the school's activities, approached the group. "Marina used to say that some horses are angels in disguise," he commented softly. "I never really believed it. Until now." Sophia smiled, recognizing another story from her mother's diary in her father's words. Now that Edward had allowed himself to open his heart, Marina's memories flowed naturally in their conversations, like a long-dammed river finally finding its course. "Daddy," Sophia called, "can I show Lucas the special trick Silverwind does with me?" With the therapist's approval, Sophia entered the riding arena. With gentle gestures that strongly resembled Marina's, she led Silverwind in a little dance. 3 steps forward, a graceful turn, and a gentle bow. Lucas watched, fascinated, his small hands clapping silently. "Want to try?" Sophia asked the boy. To everyone's surprise, Lucas reached out his arms towards her. Sophia looked at the therapist, who nodded encouragingly. With Mr. Miller's help, the 2 children were soon mounted on Silverwind, who adjusted his pace to accommodate his small riders. "She has the gift," commented Mrs. Helen, who was watching the scene from the porch with Amanda. "The same gift Marina had for seeing beyond. Appearances for touching hearts." Amanda agreed, her eyes following Edward, who was now helping other children prepare for their sessions. "Everyone has changed so much," she reflected. "It's as if the estate has finally awakened from a long winter." In the riding arena, something even more extraordinary happened. Lucas, still mounted on Silverwind with Sophia, pointed to the sky and murmured his first word, "Blue." The impact was immediate. His mother ran into the arena, tears streaming freely down her face. The therapist quickly jotted down notes, her hands trembling with emotion. Edward stopped what he was doing, suddenly remembering another first word long ago. Sophia, as a baby, had also said blue when she saw Marina with her lucky scarf. "Did you know blue was my mum's favorite color?" Sophia told Lucas, who looked at her with wide eyes. "She used to say it's the color of dreams coming true." Silverwind neighed softly, as if in agreement. The horse began to walk in gentle circles, creating a gentle dance that cradled the 2 children. Lucas continued to murmur blue repeatedly, each repetition clearer than the last. At the end of that afternoon, when the last families had left, Sophia and Edward sat together on the porch steps. Silverwind grazed peacefully nearby, his ears occasionally twitching in their direction, ever attentive. "You know, Daddy," Sophia began, playing with the blue ribbon she now always wore in her hair, "I think I understand why Mommy loved doing this so much. It's like being part of a miracle every day." Edward hugged his daughter, feeling a wave of gratitude so intense he could hardly breathe. "Your mother always knew," he said softly, "about the power of love to transform lives. I just took too long to learn." "But you learned," Sophia replied with the simple wisdom of children, "and now we're helping others learn too." Silverwind approached, resting his majestic head on Sophia's shoulder. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of blue and gold, like a silent blessing over Windhaven Estate and its inhabitants, who had finally found their true purpose. The first anniversary of Morningstar Stables dawned with a surprise. Small blue wildflowers had bloomed all over the Windhaven Estate gardens. Wildflowers no one remembered planting. Mrs. Helen, seeing them from the kitchen window, smiled through tears. They were the same flowers Marina used to pick to decorate the stable. Sophia woke up early on that special day, eager to start the celebration preparations. She put on her favorite riding outfit and hurried to the stable, where Silverwind already awaited her, as if he knew the importance of the date. "Good morning, my friend," she whispered, hugging the horse's neck. "Today is a very special day." Mr. Miller, who had just arrived, smiled seeing them together. "You know, little one," he commented while helping Sophia prepare Silverwind, "in all my years caring for horses, I've never seen a connection like yours, except perhaps with your mother." The morning progressed with party preparations. Amanda coordinated the decoration of the riding arena, where photographs from the past year were displayed. Children smiling on their first rides. Silverwind, gently guiding young patients, moments of therapeutic breakthrough captured in images. Edward, watching the preparations from his office, leafed through a special album he had secretly compiled. In it, Photographs of Marina mingled with recent photos of Sophia, creating a timeline of love and healing. On the last page, a particularly touching photo. Sophia and Silverwind receiving the award for the state's best therapeutic riding program. "I always knew you could see beyond appearances," said Mrs. Helen, entering the office silently. In her hands, she carried Marina's diary, its pages now carefully restored and bound. "Marina was sure that one day your heart would open." Edward closed the album gently. "It took me too long," he admitted. "But Sophia, she has a way of illuminating the darkness, just like her mother." Outside, guests began to arrive, families whose lives had been transformed by the program, healthcare professionals who had witnessed daily miracles, and even some skeptics who were now the biggest advocates for equine therapy. The special presentation began with Sophia and Silverwind leading a parade of little riders, children who, a year before, could barely communicate or move, and now rode with confidence and joy. Lucas, the boy who spoke his first word in the riding arena, now chatted excitedly with everyone, wearing a blue scarf just like Sophia's. "Mommy was right," Sophia said to her father as they watched the celebration. She wrote in her diary that love is like a seed. Sometimes it takes a while to sprout, but when it finds fertile ground, it grows stronger than anything else. Edward hugged his daughter, his heart overflowing with gratitude. "And you, my little one, were the one who watered that seed with your courage and your pure heart." Amanda joined them, bringing a surprise, a new sign for the school entrance. Under the name Morning Star Stables, a quote from Marina's diary had been added. "Where there is love, there is healing. Where there is hope, there are miracles." The celebration culminated in a special moment, the unveiling of a statue in the center of the garden. Under the golden light of dusk, a bronze sculpture was revealed, depicting Marina mounted on Silverwind, her arms outstretched as if embracing the world. At the base, a simple inscription, "To the one who taught us to fly with our hearts." Silverwind, upon seeing the statue, approached slowly. Everyone watched in silence as the horse gently touched Marina's bronze face with his muzzle, a gesture so full of love it brought tears to the eyes of those present. Sophia mounted Silverwind one last time that day, riding gently through the garden as the sun set. The small blue wildflowers seemed to glow in the twilight, like stars fallen from the sky. Mrs. Helen, Amanda, and Edward watched from the porch, their hearts united in a single certainty. True love never dies. It simply transforms, blossoms in new forms, touches new lives. "You know," Sophia said as she dismounted, her words carrying the wisdom inherited from Marina, "I think I understand why Silverwind chose to stay with us all these years. He wasn't just waiting for me, he was safeguarding Mommy's love until we were ready to receive it." And so, under a sky painted in hues of blue and gold, Windhaven Estate continued its journey of transformation, a living testament to the power of love to heal, unite, and illuminate even the darkest corners of our hearts.